Greetings, folks. This is DC Investing, Reach Financial Independence, and I'm talking about topics to help others on their pathway to financial independence. And one of the topic today is on just making it a goal for yourself to become, I don't know, a millionaire or a decamillionaire, or having enough assets that they pay your living expenses. And it's really a goal to try to achieve. And I was reflecting on that today, and thinking back to the time when I was in college studying to be an engineer. That was really a difficult time. Uh, Engineering is hard, and I am not a gifted math person. I don't inherently like math. I can use it to do the things that I need to, but I really struggled in college. And it took me 6 years to get my degree. I think I took a semester off to do a project, and then there were a couple classes that I just didn't make it through, like ordinary differential equations was was a hard thing. And often the instructors had various dialects to their language. They weren't from the US or English born speakers, and that just made it hard to get through some of these classes. So yeah, 6 years as a student. And what I was going on was that if I spend this time and put this effort, and it probably took me 50 or 60 hours a week between commuting to going to classes. I was at the university all day and then studying for many hours at night, trying to get ready for exams. I don't know, maybe it was more like 70 or 80 hours a week. It seemed like all encompassing for me. I just had to study constantly to get this. And I did this, for 5.5, 6 years. But what it got me was eventually that piece of paper that says, yep, you're an engineer. And then, an engineering firm hired me just based upon that piece of paper. I didn't have any engineering experience. I just had my degree, and they needed engineers at the time. And so I got hired. And then for the past 25 years, I've been working as an engineer, earning that funding. But, I was just kind of thinking about the number of hours it took to get me to that position. And I was willing to spend those 80-hour-a-week focuses to try to become an engineer. And I just want to convert that over to the idea of becoming financially independent. Achieving anything in life requires a lot of time, effort, and sacrifice. And just like I sacrificed 6 years of my life to become an engineer, you may have to sacrifice 6 years equivalent of your life in order to get to the point of being financially independent. And it requires a sacrifice to get there. And it may be the equivalent of 80 hours a week for 6 years of time frame. If you're at a, I don't know, $50 an hour time frame, multiply that times, not just 40 hours a week, but 80 hours a week times 6 years. I don't know what that turns into. Maybe it's a 50 grand a year, 60. I don't know. I don't have the math. Like I said, the engineering, I'm not there. But if you put that amount of time in and you just solely dedicate that to investing, can you save $500,000 over 6 years on your salary? Can you save, $750,000 if you put that much time and dedication into it? And just like I was willing to do 6 years of my life to get an engineering degree, I've also spent the past decade of time trying to learn to invest, saving up my funds, and dedicated a portion of my life, instead of buying stuff and more experiences or more things, I just wanted to buy investments. And so I made it a formal push or plan in order to do that. And kind of as an interesting offside, I remember talking to one of my colleagues who was going to get a master's degree in, I think, RF engineering or something. And at the time, I was looking at going back and getting a master's degree more in servo engineering, mechatronics, that sort of thing. And I actually went to the University of Utah is where I went. I went up there and took one class, took time off from my work to go over there, paid for the tuition. And I kind of did a simple mathematical calculation to say, is this worth it? Is it worth my time to go up and get a master's degree for the pure financial aspects of it? And I remember talking to my colleague after he finished his master's degree. I said, okay, so you now have an advanced degree. Is our company paying you anything more than it was before? And he basically said no. I do think that if you have an advanced degree, it helped your raises over time. But I kind of watched this individual And I noticed that, we kind of ran out of some of the engineering work, and he eventually went over to systems, which is kind of just management. So, he stopped using his technical education and kind of just went more towards the business aspect, which is kind of sad because engineering is so hard and the mathematics involved is just crazy. And so, that one, I took that, I went back to school for one semester, took one class as just a sniff to see, hey, do I want to do more of this? And it was interesting because taking the exam like triggered a fight or flight instinct in me because I never was a person to test really well. And what was it? I was like, I remember why I don't like school is because I don't like the feeling of not getting good results on exams, even though I'm a good engineer and I built a lot of cool things, but just testing is not my thing. So like I do not want to spend another year and a half of my time frame to do this, taking hours off from work to go do this. Even though work would pay for my schooling, if I got back and it just didn't increase how much I made, it just wasn't going to be worth it. And so I made that decision, and instead of focusing on engineering, I decided to focus on financial aspects. I learned to invest, spent more time learning the tax code and figuring out how to do my investing thing. And I really think that paid a huge dividend to me because I'm at that point where I've reached financial freedom. I don't need my engineering job anymore to exist. But the reason why I bring that story up is because it was a decision on my part to say, no, I'm not going to study engineering anymore. I'm going to study financial stuff because I think long term, that's going to provide a larger financial benefit to me than going back to school and getting a higher degree in engineering. Now, I do think that there's something to be said about folks who'll switch careers after they get those advanced degrees. They can then farm themselves out and you can be worth more to a new company as opposed to the company you're at may or may not, give you a sufficient raise to make it worth that extra schooling or something. So I don't know, rambling a little bit, I guess, but the idea of being really deliberate on what you focus on and what the economic benefits to them might be. My focus on learning about finances has created a much better result than what I believe would have happened had I continued on with that master's degree. I don't think it would have been a good economic result based upon what I see from other folks in my career area, whereas learning about financing or finance and investing really has. So, be deliberate about where you're going in life and do that trade-off for anything that you're studying or working on. Long term, what gives you a better result? Will improving your career or starting your business or whatever give you that result, or will just taking your funding and investing be a better result? So be deliberate about that. Think about that. So that's kind of my discussion for today. Like, subscribe. Thanks for being here. We'll see you. Bye.